Welcome to The First Turn. I'm your host, Hyena, and today, Llama and I are talking about This Week in Warhammer. If you like what you hear, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. Alright, let's get to it. Welcome to The First Turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
Today we're talking about Warhammer stuff. As we do.
Again?
Yeah. Do we talk about anything else ever?
Rarely.
Yeah. This week in Warhammer has been a little light, I'll admit.
The Golden Boys are out. Though.
Yep. We've got this week is the week before announcing that the pre-orders are up, and then this weekend we've got pre-orders for Stormcast Eternals.
Yep.
We've seen a little bit of info on them. We've seen some, leaks and then some teasers of what the rules are going to look like. We've seen some, obviously some folks are embargo lifted. They can share their paint jobs and their opinions on the book and whatnot.
I can tell a favorite is whatever the winged guy is called.
So it's the new Knight Azeros. So he existed before as a dual part or dual kit, and it was like the archer, the flying archer with the bird,
yep,
or the flying sword guy with the lantern. And so this is a new version of him. They've cut the old one. Here's the new one,
and one of them's named.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of people really put their paintbrush to that one. I think he's a show PC.
I mean, he feels to me very much like what the Lord Celestin, the Celestin Prime was when he first came out.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was this big kind of centerpiecey lot going on, energy swirls and whatever. A very, very similar kind of aesthetic to that, but design-wise, leaps and bounds above that.
Yep.
I mean, if you wanted to get a Celestin Prime now, I might use that model and turn it into one.
Well, him and the winged soldiers, prosecutors. It was funny because they released to fanfare and applause. They looked spectacular, and they came out at about the same time as the Sanguinary Guard.
Yep.
And so people were like, "Oh, looking at this like." They made this, and really the only detail in the Sanguinary Guard that they should have had was just wings, because
I needed nipples,
because that's makeable. The wings you got to get other parts is the thing.
Exactly.
And
their jump packs. Sanguinary Guard always had ornamental jump packs where they had looked like they had wings. They weren't functional. They didn't flap.
Right.
But they looked like wings.
And they're supposed to be ancient and so it was weird that they released a plain version of those at the same time as these, and these just look, everybody was immediately like, these look so much better.
Yep.
Yeah. Because they really nailed the Stormcast aesthetic this time around, just all around. But those are finally available for people to start ordering, and then we'll get to see what their Battletome looks like, and if it changes things for them, because they haven't had a good time winning.
Well, we saw with Skaven, not much change between Index and Battletome. A few things were added.
They added the new units, yep.
But what is Stormcast going to look like compared to its Index? Because like I said, I think there's tons of stuff they could have added, they could have changed, they could have updated. Stormcast are not doing great.
Nope.
Mostly because they just don't have the stats, right?
Yep. They have one stat. They have armor saves. That's it.
There is but they're not unique to that.
Nope.
There are other armies that have the same kinds of armor saves.
Another one, which we talk about a lot, the Slaves to Darkness, have similar armor saves, but they also hit.
Yeah. They also have stats they actually put out.
Yep.
And then you can enhance that through them performing heroic acts during the game and getting buffs. And it's an army rule that's not one where you have to be selective, right? You just have to have done the thing and you get the benefit. It's not choose a unit that did a thing, one of the units that did a thing, and one of them gets a benefit.
Yeah.
It's every unit that did this thing.
At the end of each turn,
gets a benefit.
every unit gets to do it. Yeah.
So, I mean, part of that, which the difference there is, I think something we want to talk about today, and that's the difference between kind of the power levels of like the design, right? Of army rules.
Well, if we ignore the units, which I'm sure they tried to factor in, but it's hard. But if you ignored the units that each army has and you just looked at that one page of like, here's the core rules for your army. Is that the battle traits page, I think?
Yeah.
And like there is quite a disparity between how those look from one army to the next. And I know you need to make 20, however many functionally different ones, But when you're trying to make it something that affects their rules in the game or their mechanics in the game, you can't have some that are just like, these universally apply at all times and always stack. And then this other one,
looking at you, Night Haunt.
yeah,
Right.
And then you've got another one here that's just like, well, this one only lets a unit do a thing out of sequence slightly,
Right.
and it's like Iron Jaws, where they get their little like, oh, an extra 3-inch pile-in.
Stormcast's ability is one unit every turn gets to be their finest hour. One unit every turn for that turn is +1 to wound, +1 to their saves.
Yeah, and it's like, and you compare that to when we were looking at like Lumineth and Night Hunt. They just have these stacks of.
Oh, are you Alarith, the Stone Temple? You just ignore Rend. It's like that's so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, and how multiplicative that is, and not factored into the points really, unlike what the units themselves do. But so we'll talk about that. At first, we're still recently removed-ish, I guess in the days of the internet, it's like an eternity ago, from the Golden Demon that took place in Essen. And it's interesting how the dynamic has changed, or the conversation has changed. At first, you saw people posting the miniatures in the cabinets. They're posting their miniatures with their own photography, and Warhammer communities putting them up on their page. And I'm sure we'll see here in a few days where they post the ones that didn't win, like they did at ours, where they then show the next wave of like, here's all the finalists, and then the people who were happy, and then who were posting what they learned and got to meet all these people. Well, now we're a week removed from that, and we're getting a new wave of stuff. And this does happen, but some of the negative commentary starts to come out, and it's disappointing when it's glib, when it's an oversimplified take on it, and it's a negative flatline statement, and it's made by somebody who's even kind of prominent in the community, and then a whole bunch of people jump on because you got a lot of followers of those people, and they're easily influenced by those people, hence the term influencer. And I saw one make a comment about the judging at Essen. They posted a picture of their own entry that got like a finalist pin. It was a very good looking piece. And then someone was like, I'm surprised that didn't trophy. And as we have noticed at recent games, Golden Demons, I almost said Games Day, recent Golden Demons, there are so many that could trophy, but now the talent and the entries are so deep, not everybody can win. That's competition.
Right.
Not everybody can win.
I mean, look at 40K single.
Yeah.
At ours at Adepticon.
There's like 20 that can get.
Yeah, it was there was 3 cabinets of the top 2 shelves were all finalists.
Yeah.
It's like there's like 30 entries that could be top 3.
And then I'll get to like the solution suggestions that the same community makes that I disagree with. But one comment that stuck out to me was someone said, well, the judging at Essen was bad. And they said it that simply. The judging was bad.
What does that mean?
And then they went on to say, people are afraid to speak out for fear of backlash. So,
except for this guy. This guy's
right.
He's a rebel.
He's a pioneer.
Up. He's out there. I'm going to say it. It's bad.
And the first statement that I pick on here is just by saying the judging was bad. Well, that's a very broad statement that can mean a whole lot of things.
Bad is just like, that's a grunt.
It's
explain yourself. Explain your work. What do you mean?
And so it's like, well, so what are the things you can break that down into? Well, if you're going to say, could you look at any of the trophy winners and say none of them deserved a trophy? Right. No. Well, you've eliminated that then. So it wasn't like it was unfair. Then you're going to say, well, in my opinion, I liked this one, or my favorite painter's thing didn't win,
right?
Or my own thing didn't win. Well, you're talking about subjective judgment in a subjective field that is art. The judges are going to have their own opinions. If you're talking about you walked around the cases and looked at things, consider what the fans and spectators can see versus what the judges can see. We as the spectators only get to see it one of 2 ways. We either get to look at a picture, which doesn't tell the whole story, and we already have our thoughts on photography, or or you're looking at it in a glass case that has weird lighting, and you're looking at it pretty much from one direction.
And from too far away to get a good look of what's actually going on.
Right, and so unless you were that entry that got to be in that sweet spot in the cabinet, you don't really know what it looks like. Well, the judges get to do something different. They get to look at hundreds of entries, which is exhausting, but then they have to decide which ones make that first cut. Then they have to go back and relook at the ones that made the first cut and decide which ones are notable. Then they have to go back through the notables and decide which ones are finalists. And they have to go back through the finalists and decide which ones are really in contention. Then they got to pick placing. So they look and relook and relook and relook. Then they collaborate as a group and they reach a consensus. But there's one more thing they get to do we don't. They get to remove the model from the cabinet. They get to look at it 360 degrees. They get to take it into a space where they put it under really good lighting and magnification. So they're going to see things we don't.
Right.
I would go so far as to say the judges' opinions, therefore, might even be more well-informed than our own. And they don't have...
You think?
They don't have that same bias we do where it's like, oh, I saw this piece on social media. It's so cool, so I hope it wins. Yeah. And they're not doing that.
No, but I would say, counter-argument, is that they are not immune to that. Right? I mean, there's plenty of times when judges are well-known painters, and they see another piece from a friend of theirs who's a well-known painter, and
might give them a little bump,
unconsciously doing it, but they give them a little bit of. I mean, we see those pieces win sometimes. I'm just going to say that. Right? Is it's like if you're judging your friend's thing and they win, it's a little suspicious.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So especially if you recognized it beforehand, that's a little suspicious. That aside, I think some of the named painters generally place higher, maybe because there is social media influence, but maybe just because they're damn good painters.
Well, and
you know what I mean?
And that brings me to another thing that I didn't realize until someone put up the metrics for this one. But so that's my first thing. So now the word bad doesn't apply because the judges are getting to look at it in a way we don't. So I don't think the word bad fits there.
So you know what bad judging would be? Bad judging would be, hey, this guy is submitted for 8 years in a row and is getting no better. We're going to throw him a bone and give him a gold medal.
That is bad judging.
Just so he can say he got it and stop submitting models.
Right. Or
that happened once.
It happened at a P3 Grandmaster. Yeah.
And so that's bad judging. Bad judging is taking a look at a model while you're in the middle of painting and judging it based on a glance. That's bad judging. One person getting to say this model gets
wield
this
that power. Yeah.
That's bad judging.
And or if they purposely deny someone an award because they know them and don't like them, but even then, now you're talking about, so if you think their judgment was bad or they made a bad decision based on something, well, were you in their inner circle when they were talking about it, when they were collaborating, when they were deciding who gets what? I don't think any of you were. So I don't think that can count. So I still don't see where the bad judging is.
Right.
Furthermore, would you take any trophies away from the ones who won? All of those pieces look great, even from a two-dimensional picture. I can't imagine what they looked like in person. So I still don't see how they could say the judging was bad. Now, at this one, we didn't have the same controversy we had at the North America one. No pieces that were 3D scanned with IP infringement turned upside down were allowed to win. Nothing with a printed background was allowed to win. So there's not even controversy there. So the only thing I can think of you go to next is you're going to say you maybe think the categories are too vague.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they've had to add 4 or 5 new categories in the last year. And so that's hard. And so it went from everything that's generically fantasy all went into the same area to now like, well, but now you've got Blood Bowl, now you've got Underworlds, now you've got Necromunda, now you've got, and then you've got Epic Scale. Then Middle Earth is just one category. Horus Heresy is just one category. And then they've decided to combine Duel and Diorama, which...
Because it was too hard of a differentiation between it.
And now some people want it separate again because you see like the guy who did the Space Wolf versus Hive Tyrant, which looks great. One of the best resin pours I've ever seen. But that was clearly a duel. Whereas the other guy did that huge battle inspired by artwork of Chaos versus Space Marines, which is a diorama.
Right. I'm okay with those being in the same category because they're all telling stories.
They're telling these grand stories. I could see if there were enough of each that were that distinct.
Sure. You're
splitting them back up.
Now, I personally would like to see some of the criteria for a category change. Potentially, right? Because we've talked about this a little bit with just how talent works, a little bit, so like there was, think about, what was it? Crystal Brush, 2017.
That was the last one. 2016 was the Daniel Craig.
Yeah. Right. If you submitted the Daniel Craig sculpted bust Space Marine to a Golden Demon right now,
it would be open
category.
Yep.
But there are plenty of examples of things where someone has sculpted something pretty much from scratch and submitted it into an actual category.
Yep.
And it's like, I think that's a bit dicey, right? Because it's like, here we have a company's hosting it, and it's like, we produce these models for you to paint, and we want you to convert them and do cool things and paint them and stuff. But there's a point where it's like, you've done so much custom work to it that it's not the thing anymore. This is inspired by the thing. Is it actually valid for that category anymore?
And so that one is a tougher kernel, I think, for them to crack, because that has been permitted since the beginning.
Correct.
I mean, you had guys like Joe Orteza in the 90s winning with green stuff scratch built.
Yeah.
So I think then for now anyway, and they might have to look at it to revise it based on what you just said, but for now, I think they go by scale more than anything. So like Albert Moreto Font did it 2 years in a row, and where he heavily converted something. But when he showed the raw photos of it, it's like, well, he used the stock metal of all things, Orc Knob, and he used a bunch of these plastic bits, and then one of the most creative things I've ever seen, by the way, he did a squig that was literally upside down chin on a troll that he converted into a squig. So he used these base GW bits, but by the time it's done, you're like, well, is this an old world Orc Shaman, or is this an AOS single?
Right.
And now those are two categories.
Yeah.
So I think if you're talking like the Daniel Craig thing, it would have been an open because it was scaled at like 75 mil,
Sure.
right? But
or like correctly categoried was there the Mephiston 50 mil scale.
Scratch built
one. Like, sure, okay, you're that kind of. But now, what happens if you take that Mephiston and you shrink him down to the 30 mil scale
and you hand sculpt
it again? Now what? Is that 40K single?
Right?
Is that open? I think there's a line there that you have to they maybe get ahead of it, right? Because I'm not saying like, oh, he scratch built this thing, that's not fair, it's too good. Because we did say that about jokingly about people having too much talent, because it's like, well,
right, but you can't punish them for
not
that,
only did they sculpt this thing for hand, it looks amazing, but then they painted it expertly. Screw that guy. Yeah. Right. But I think with the idea of, well, now now sculpting is going to be the new 3D printing, right? Where it's like, well, now what happens if you can sculpt really, really well and you do that vampire upside down without his face and hands? Now all of a sudden you replicate the exact same model, but now you're sculpting it. I saw someone actually make that model in a 3D program.
Yeah.
They sculpted it. And so if they print that then and then put that on there, that's fair game.
Yep. And we have an example of that.
So it gets really weird.
So there was this guy, what's his name? Thondarian? He goes by on social media. I don't remember. Well, he did the Wraith Baron. It was inspired from some old Eldar fluff about Wraith structures. And he sculpted the entire thing.
See, that's insane to me.
In a 3D software.
That's insane to me.
And the reason GW permits that is he didn't do a scan of a single GW piece or thing. And he released the video where he showed how he did it.
To me, that doesn't matter.
And it's so that still fell under their. They've had to keep up with the times. 3D printing is more accessible to people now than ever, and so that is a way people sculpt. They're like, so long as you don't do a scan and you don't use a third party, it still counts as sculpting.
I know,
but he got
so allow it for your tournaments then.
He got it right.
Go that far then,
right,
huh? If you sculpt your own models, allow me to play 3D models in my tournament. Then
they might
if you let me do it for your painting competition.
If it's not an STL, they might.
But it would all be an STL. It wouldn't be a freely available STL. But if you looked at that Wraith Baron and you told me that was not the Wraith Knight kit with like extra stuff added to it, I would laugh.
Yeah,
because it's like, that's just the Wraith Knight kit.
Yeah, he described it was about 400 hours to sculpt
the lance that it had looked like a bright lance converted into like a weapon or like a melee weapon, right? The shield looks like, I don't know, some kind of a hull plate from one of the other vehicles. Like, I thought it was just straight up a converted model, and it's like, sweet.
Well, point being, there was stuff like that that still couldn't trophy. So where I disagree first is on the assumption that the judges were bad. The next is when people question what should and shouldn't win. And if you're going to talk about, it's a competition, people. Like, I know we're in the age of everyone gets to be included, but like, I think what makes Golden Demon so special is that not everybody gets a trophy.
But At the same time, they have introduced a bit of a merit-based system.
They have.
Which we've seen, right?
The notables and finalists.
It's not just pins anymore. It's not just ribbons for being a finalist. It's also you get a plaque saying, hey, this is a commended entry. Like
we got one. They're really nice.
Really well.
Yeah.
You know, like they're doing that kind of thing. So everyone, even the winners, get a plaque.
Yeah.
Right? If anyone made it to this part in the category, you basically made it, gold, silver, bronze, quality paint job.
Yeah.
And then here are the demon winners for each category,
right.
The top 3. And so it's merit plus top 3. It's the best of both worlds.
It is. And I'm glad they still kept that where there's still a third, second, first, because it feels so special to win one. But even the notable entries in the finalists, you still got to be in that top 10 to 15% of your category.
Right.
And that's hard with how many amazing entries go in. And so when people try to propose solutions, it gets even worse to me. It's like, you say the judging's bad? Well, I disagree, and I think we've offered our reasons why. Mm-hmm. And then you say, and second of all, the judges have a very difficult job. They have to go through hundreds of entries and narrow it down. And
it's not like they have all the time in the world.
And just like the rest of us,
they've got 58 hours to do it.
And just like us, they're going to have opinions. They get a little more information than we do. And then, so your solution is what? You want more people to get trophies? Well, now you've diluted.
Hey, how about we just let the community vote on it?
So I was just going to say that. That was going to be my second proposed. So it's like, well, if you go merit based, it's no longer Golden Demon, because how special does it feel to come home with bronze, silver, or gold if there's now 16 bronzes given out in a category instead of 1? Like, now it's nothing. Now it becomes just too easy to win them. Now you just have to do a good enough job and you get hardware. Well, not to knock on it because we like the event, but I already know that's what I can do at the Gen Con General. If I want a cheap award, I know I can just do a half-ass paint job, go in there and get a ribbon. And like, that's not the same. It's not the same. Now, if you get the first overall thing, super cool. But it's not the same as like, you got a Golden Demon. Heck, it even feels like more getting one of those finalist pins and a plaque in a category. Like when Moose and I came away with the plaques in the dual diorama category, where the Slayer Sword winner was, in a stacked category, it was like, that felt like an accomplishment, more so than what it felt like to even win a demon, 12 years ago now, when I won my last one. But like, so there's that. And then the other proposal is like, what? You let the fan community vote. So
it becomes a popularity contest. So
there's the other problem, yes.
Ninjon, as an example.
Who's got a huge following, and he's a good painter.
Well, people will realize that that's his model, and they like him. Not necessarily the model, even though the model, I'm sure, is good. Not to knock him.
He's a good painter.
So I want to toe this line, right?
Yeah.
It's because it becomes name versus merit.
Right.
Right. It's no longer about how well you did on your model. It's about whose name is attached to which model.
It's who's going to get the vote.
Right.
And
it's just like it's meaningless at that point.
And so then it becomes, so it's funny is then it becomes even more of a celebrity top heavy result, because the fans are going to vote for who they like and not what they really thought was the best. They're not going to spend that time that the judges do looking at every piece to give it an objectively
and then
fair.
It becomes, who's the best photographer?
Yeah.
Or who's the best at cleaning up their model in Photoshop? And
then we've got to wait. We got to wait at the con for a day while the fan vote comes in, and then so I don't think that's a solution. I think what they have is not perfect, but it's worked this long for a reason, and so like I don't think either of those are quote fixes to this. So I don't really know what I don't think the judging was bad. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think either of those proposals are a way you make it so everybody's happy. You just can't have it for everybody to be happy. It's just never going to be the thing.
Yep.
And most of the people who were entrants and who walked away with something described only feeling inspired to start their next projects, to pick the brains of the other artists, and to know they've got to reach for something, maybe more, because it is that hard to win. But that's what makes it feel so good when you get there. Mm-hmm. It does.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
So yes, that's our thoughts on Golden Demon.
Yeah,
it's spicy.
It's a little spicy, but I keep seeing people say those things, and it's like not everybody can get it.
But we also know that there are a lot of bad opinions on the internet. Mm-hmm. We know that there are a lot of profane, self-proclaimed experts that know nothing about a field. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's rampant right now.
Yeah.
You know, opinions weighing as much as fact is a problem.
Right.
Those two things are not equal, by the way.
Yeah.
They're not even like.
And it's in every genre. It's not just art.
Exactly. No. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can watch a true crime podcast, and all you'll see in the comment section is people talking about how dumb the police dispatcher was, or how they would have handled the situation
cracks
differently.
me up too is kind of about that is the idea that because there are two options that both things are equally likely.
Right.
Is another like false equivalency. Right. It's like, well, here's the fact. It's 98% true. It's like, yeah, but I think there's another option. It could be this one. 2% chance. So it could be either. It's like, yes, it could be either, but it's not either.
No.
it's this one. Statistically, it's much more likely it's this one. No.
Yeah, and the final thing I want to say in that is then people assuming the whole idea of thinking they're bad, or the whole idea of looking at what won in a two-dimensional picture, and then drawing the conclusion where you get people who weren't even there, or maybe themselves are not aspiring award-winning painters, where they then claim like to know what the judges look for.
Right.
It's again, you weren't in that group, but then they call for, well, maybe the judges should put up a, here's what we're looking for. The reason I'm against that is because this isn't a homework assignment.
Right. Because
it's an art competition.
It will be a competition full of the same entry as people try to
or
match
the exact same
rubric.
style, because you read the checklist, and I want to make sure I do these things.
I like the idea of creativity. I like creative things. But there was a phenomenal piece for, was it 40K diorama, one of those where it was a goblin jumping out of a plane.
Yeah.
And there was a fire extinguisher behind him, and it was like scale. The plane was scale, and the goblin wasn't, and so it looked like it was some forced perspective there. He was super creative. I never would have thought of that in a million years. An entry like that. It was phenomenal.
Yep.
That kind of thing wouldn't be submitted if you had a rubric of this is what we're
Right.
looking for. We're looking for a model on a base that is custom built, this size, this dimensions, this style with this much flocking. Like, no.
Yeah.
We don't need to limit, to put it inside of a box.
Yeah, right? Make it something you're happy with, and it might get awarded, because we've seen stuff of radically different styles win.
Yeah.
And then we've seen stuff that you'd think would win and doesn't. Again, not everybody can get one, so it's tough, but that's competition.
Yeah.
And people don't just do it for that. They don't just do it expecting to win, especially now with how many people are that good.
I feel like too, if you're an influencer or a kind of creator or whatever you want to call it, you're also doing it not really. I mean, winning would be nice, but you're also doing it just to get your stuff out there, and I feel like keep your clout, right? You need to keep participating in this kind of stuff in order to make sure that you're confirming to people that you're still a painter, like you're still doing it.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's it goes without saying. I'll compliment how some of the well-known people keep their Golden Daemon projects hidden until it's time.
Yeah,
they kept it almost like under NDA style, where you didn't see it until they're like, well, I arrived in Essen, I'll show pictures of what I brought, and you're like, I didn't see you working on that at all.
Right.
Amazing stuff.
I think it's kind of hard if you don't have a lot of time to paint to like not show it off.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, well, this is the only thing I can work on because I don't have enough time to work on this plus other things. I want to show those songs. I think it's looking really good.
You know, one of the neatest stats, and we can move on from the Golden Daemon subject, is of the trophies that were handed out. I don't remember the exact number. It might have been 39, 38. 22 were to people who'd never won one before.
That's awesome.
And so that shows it's not just a who's who, which if it were a fan vote, it would be a popularity contest. And like this showed like, nope, you bring the goods and they will judge it. Like, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it. Should be participating in Golden Demon next year.
March.
And then potentially Germany next year too. That'd be super sweet. Really forward to that. You sent me a link to a new model case today.
Games Workshop showed it off today in the pre-orders.
It was one they had it already for small scale stuff where there's like, they've been trying to do new designs for model cases, right?
For a long time.
And they've done a handful, right? You've got your normal like foam and pluck foam and stuff, your battle foam style, right? Deep foam pockets basically. And then we, had the classic style of like foam backed, like foam lattice where you had like spots for, individual minis.
Rectangles and,
Well, Games Workshop a few years ago did a questionable product. The case was pretty flimsy. It held a lot of models. I got one. The case was a little flimsy, a little light, but the foam style they had was like the zigzag trays, which held so much. It was by far the highest capacity model holder I've ever had.
Yeah, because the zigzag rows, which I just have their small one that I use to bring whatever mini I'm working on, it's only attached on the ends and not on the bottom, and so it's really maneuverable.
Yeah. So lots of things, lots of pokey things, lots of points can all fit in that without breaking them, which is really nice. But then they did like the model display cubes. They were partnering with a company for that.
Yep.
For magnetized floating models that don't touch anything while you're transporting painting competition style. And then they came up with this,
which is who makes their plaques.
Yeah. And they came up with this. This company, I don't know which company it is, but this new style where it's like these almost like rubber nub type.
Silicone bristles, they call it.
Silicone bristles. Yeah. Where it touches the models and bends and holds them in place with a little bit of flexion, but they had done that initially, I don't know, call it 6 months ago, for their skirmish size one, where it was only supposed to hold like 10 to 20 models. This newer one looks a lot larger.
Yeah.
For holding like almost army sized, combat patrol sized armies now. I guess it was successful enough that they thought, let's move forward with a bigger.
I'm surprised they pursue that because a lot of other companies and just individuals have come up with army transport solutions, and no one's really asking Games Workshop to do it, but they're still like, here you go.
I don't want to use cookie sheets though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it works. I don't want to.
Yep.
I'd like a more professional, more purpose-built, not home scratch-built model solution. Personally. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. They're kind of doing more of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, if we get one in, I guess we'll
test it out.
Yep.
Could be neat. But then we had, we touched on a little bit earlier about before we got in the Golden Daemon tangent.
Yeah,
we're talking about AOS army rules. Their detachment rules and their
battle traits and their formations.
And so we were talking about in a vacuum, looking at things and how they just don't laterally equate. Even when you take you disregard what units are available to the army. And you just look at okay, what's the power level of these rules that apply to said army? Mm-hmm. So say every army was exactly the same. Say we're playing chess.
Yep.
Right? Every single army has the exact same models available. You've got infantry that can move forward and attack diagonal. You've got, limited guys that can go laterally or whatever. Chess. Now, which one is best with these rules applied to it? And there are wildly different power levels of army rules. We pointed out Lumineth have a particularly good one.
Yeah.
We pointed out that
Night
Haunts, while better before, is still very, very good. 50% of the time you just don't take damage.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yep.
With a ward save, by the way. But then you have things like Skaven, which are questionable because their individual rules that might be really good are so limited to what they apply to. Or you've got Sylvaneth that rely all about their faction terrain, which is very easily destroyable.
Yeah.
It's just there's not enough power in the units themselves
to make up for it.
The rules have kind of been taken away. The stats have kind of been taken away from a lot of the units and given to the army rule, or been taken off of there for simplification purposes. But then their army rule wasn't bolstered to compensate. Nope. So it's while everything in the index is reduced down, some of them felt like they were long-term plans to keep an index around for a while. Is kind of how we theorized it, right? Yep. Maybe the Lumineth isn't getting an update for a year.
Right.
Maybe they need to
it was like Craft
really
Worlds
good.
in 40K.
Right.
Yeah.
But we know that Skaven and Stormcast are coming out, so their weak ones were intentional because they're going to get a book.
Well, Skaven didn't get much better.
Skaven didn't actually improve with their book. But maybe Stormcast will.
Right.
I don't know. But it does seem like some of them are wasted on... It's a lot of wasted space because they try to fit all the army's rules on one page. When you have something like a deployment ability that is broken up into 3 separate things, that counts as 3 of your 5 spots on your page. Right? Just to describe how a unit sets up off the table and is set up during the battlefield. During the battle. I feel like that could be a universal thing. Put that in the core rules and say, this is how this deployment phase deep striking works as just a general rule, and your Stormcast thing can say you get access to this,
Right.
something, because their only army rules are like there's a little bit of recursion, a little bit. There's a little bit of like defensive output through the once per game per unit. What is it? Finest hour, which is like okay, I don't know. It's just it's interesting to look at in a vacuum and see the difference. Some armies like I call them Gloomspite gets. Their rule sounds really, really good. The moon is amazing. It does all these amazing things, but there's a limited way to be able to access it. And the units it buffs are very limited, and some of them just aren't good.
Yeah.
The goblin ability with gaining extra control and stuff. It's like, yeah, but you've got units of 20 to 40. What good is a 3 or 5 extra control? That's all you get. Who cares?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
well, and the Battletomes are supposed to be your chance to remedy that,
right,
without the need for a PDF or a download or updated errata. And they kind of did that in 40K when the first codexes came, and it was like, okay, Tyranids and Space Marines do a little more than we thought. With Skaven, though, it was like, well, they pretty much do the exact same thing. They just added the new models.
In fact, they actually took some stuff away. They're actually worse than they were in the index. So surprisingly, the Jezzail teams are just worse. Because Jezzails used to be, they get the thing where they get to shoot at characters. If they stood still, they'd be like +1 to wound, or +1 to hit, and the range is extended. And then their character was like, oh, well, you get to do this thing and ignore the penalties for doing this. But now it's like, well, now you get to do it for free, but you don't get the +1 to hit ever, and your stat for hitting is worse. So it's like Jezzail's doing the thing they're supposed to do. We're talking like a 150 point unit, 6 shots or 7 shots maybe, meant to snipe out characters, 2 damage shots, super good, right? Hit on 4s base. With this thing, they hit on 5s. And it's like,
yeah.
Even if you do a thing where you give them +1 to hit somehow, they still hit on 5s because they're double -1. Because they're not, or like Unleash Hell, for example, hit on 5s. Oh, sniping a character, hitting on 5s. It's like, it's not reliable enough. If it was the sit still for +1, hitting on a 3 kind of thing, they can do their thing reliably every turn. They're really fragile, so you can kill.
Yep.
Fine. It's like, why did you get like triple nerfed? And then the character doesn't allow them to do it without the penalty. Now it's just, it's just weird, to the point where like you don't even play them anymore. Brand new models. You don't play them because they have a weapon team of just volume of fire that outperforms them in every single
you take one of the other weapons team. Yeah. And so that was really the only thing that gained was just the new models getting rules,
right?
And so now I read some of Goonhammer's review of the Stormcast Battletome, and it sounds like they get some additions. We'll see what their version of that is versus what we think, because I know they're predominantly a 40K site,
right?
You'll know, since you tend to know Stormcast pretty intimately.
I mean, I don't think we're going to see a lot of the changes that I wanted to see, namely like WYSIWYG. I don't think we're going to see weapon options on units, even though they are represented with weapon options.
Right.
I don't think we're going to see that. I don't think we're going to see core stat changes. I think Stormcast infantry are still going to be 2 swings on every single guy, which is insane to me because that's what Space Marines have, and they're not fighting. Even
they
though
are
they're
not fighting. Yep.
We've harped on Space Marines enough.
Yeah.
This feels a lot like Space Marines, right? Where it's like, here's these super soldiers. Okay, why do they only do 60% output of a clan rat?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or like a Storm Vermin, the Skaven elite, 1 wound guys, have 3 attacks.
Yep.
Excuse me? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Chosen, 4 attacks. Why?
It's 3, unless
is it 3? Okay.
Unless they're Khorne in the
Ogres,
charge.
4 attacks apiece.
Ogres, yeah.
Rat ogres, 5 attacks apiece.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like,
Liberators,
why?
2.
Liberators, 2. Crit mortal, 1 damage each. Why? If you gave them a 3rd attack, do I think they'd be busted? No. I think they'd still be overcosted. You know what I mean? Like, because you're not saying like, oh, well, every time a Liberator attacks, they get 3 mortal wounds when they attack. It's like, no. Right now, when a Liberator attacks, you don't even guarantee you get 1 save through.
Nope.
Like a unit of 5 Liberators swinging into a unit, your like estimated damage through on like a 4-up save is like 1.5. They are such underperformers. Like they're just not good.
Yeah.
And while they had a minute where they were a little bit better, and right now they're some of the best rules they've had in a while, they're still not good.
No.
So,
well, hopefully they didn't at least take that away.
took away the Crypt Mortals.
Yeah.
That would be really, really fun.
Yeah.
But things like Liberators before, you could take either a shield and be more defensive, or you take a two hand weapons and be more offensive. Right. That's the trade off. Look at the new Paladin, or the second to new Paladins. You have the Great Hammers, or you've got the Shield and Hammer Annihilators. Well, they're 2 units. They have different point values. They got different weapon loadouts. One of them has a shield. It's got a 2-up save. One of them has a 2-handed hammer. It's got a 3-up save.
Yep.
Right? There's that reflecting in their weapon loadout. One of them's got great weapons. They got a worse save, but they do more damage. Whatever. You can put them in separate units. You can balance them separately. You can have different point values. Whatever. Liberators now, it's like, I don't care what you're equipped with. Shield, 2 weapons. You're all the same. That feels bad. The Skaven unit for Storm Vermin, the leader has a pistol.
Yes,
not
he does.
represented in the rules at all. It is an aesthetic pistol. That is unfortunate. But I think, like we had said before, it's a matter of rules writing versus like model design, and the two cycles not syncing up.
Yep.
I think they should have just released Liberators without 2 weapons if they were going to go this route. They shouldn't even give them a second hammer, because it's just confusing. I see all kinds of posts being like, well, how do I build them? They've got these 2 different weapon loadouts that are way different. And it's like, in the game, it matters not. It's like, well, that is silly.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
For some other things, I think it's fine, right? Like, you've got your paladins or your, what's that unit? Not praetors. They were the Questoris Knights guys.
Okay.
Where they are, they were from Underworld initially, where there's just 6 questing knight paladins that have an assortment of different weapon loadouts, right? Some of them have glaives, some of them have halberds, some of them have 2-hand weapons, some of them have a big hammer. Like, they've got Questoris weapons is their arsenal, right? So it's like, I just want to equip a unit like that as like for fun.
We'll see if Warhammer community is not always accurate rules-wise.
True, that's
but
true.
They did say this about their Liberator box.
Okay.
These updated miniatures can be equipped with Warhammers and shields, or twin Warhammers with 1 in every 5 wielding a Grand Hammer.
Yeah. So
maybe
they'll
actually have different rules for those.
Maybe they will.
Maybe.
But
Are they still units of 5?
yeah. So box of 10 is
actually
pretty
reinforced
good.
or
It's pretty
2
good.
units. Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah. But
Hopefully.
in the index, it was funny because it says each model is equipped with a Warhammer.
Just
And
and Warhammer.
And the photo shows nothing but
Dual hammers.
dual wielding Liberators. It was really confusing, right? It's just like, why even do that?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird. It's really weird.
Well, hope at least that's different.
Yeah. We'll see.
But
some stuff like that I want to come back. It's like, if you have clearly a different idea for them, to let us see it.
Yep.
But I don't need to have like, well, you've got a Questoris halberd, you have this weapon profile. You've got a Questoris glaive, you've got a hammer. You're dual wielding Questoris weapons, right?
Don't punish the hobbyist, right? Yeah.
You've got a Lord Celestin, right? He can bring 2 weapons, or the dragon riding Celestin, right? He used to have a sword option, a hammer option, or an axe option. Each one had different things. Now it's just weapons of legend or Celestin weapons, Azurite weapons, whatever. No matter what it looks like, it just has this one profile.
Yeah.
It didn't need 3 different weapon profiles.
No.
I'm glad they got rid of that kind of thing. This is purely aesthetic weapon choice. Fine, but some of the things it doesn't seem like it's aesthetic.
Yeah.
If you had 2 swords compared to 2 hammers, aesthetic. If you've got 1 compared to 2, it's not.
Correct.
Functionally different.
Because a shield is a different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
We'll see. And then we don't know how soon after the Slaves to Darkness book's coming. They've just simply announced it.
We know it's before the end of the year.
Yep.
It sounds like it's not going to be much of an update. There'll be a new character.
Yeah.
And the book. And there'll be a battle force that includes existing models, maybe newer ones, right? Because they've updated a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then there's your choice of one of 5 sorcerer lords.
Now they went from only having a really old one to now we've got 3 brand new ones.
It was so bad before because it was like this doesn't feel like it's the same army. The guy it didn't match what Slaves of Darkness looks like, right?
And that's probably why
he was in a robe.
I agree.
He had a weird like pincer head.
Yeah,
it was odd.
Yeah, and I agree with you. What you said last week, where it was like between the Sorcerer and the Underworlds box, between the Warhammer Plus anniversary model, between the commemorative one, and now the stock one. It's like I think they had all these different art designs and just decided to make them all.
They couldn't help themselves. They're like, well, we can't decide which one we want to release, so give this one a name. Release them as a commemorative.
Yep.
This one over here with all the familiars, we like that one too.
Put him in a
Warhammer Plus exclusive thing and put him out. Like, they couldn't decide. Which is fine. I like variety. Whatever. Yeah. They make great models for like conversions and stuff. If you already have one that you don't need, or it comes in a box, you don't need another one. Turn it into something else.
It would have been neat if they would have done a shaman, like for the Dark Oath side, who was like a priest. I mean, this model looks shamany. This one that they're releasing with the book, but I'm sure he's just going to say Wizard 1 or whatever. But I don't know.
Well, maybe I don't know. Maybe we'll get some more Dark Oath updates because for as much as it confuses me why there's a prayer lore for Slaves of Darkness without having a priest. It is there, right?
I guess the War Altar is a priest, technically.
That's the only one.
Yeah.
And do we think that's even going to survive?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
It looks old. I don't think it's going to go. I think it's going to continue. I think it's going to get cut at some point. I'm a little hesitant, honestly, when I'm looking at models about buying anything that was ported over from Old World anymore.
Same.
If there's a chance of it going back, I don't want to buy it.
Yep.
Even if it's brand new boxed, put out again, like either A, it's going to go away back to the Old World, it's going to get cut in general, or it's going to be updated. And if it's going to be updated, I don't want to buy the old one.
I want the cool new one. Yeah.
And so I'm kind of in the boat now where it's like, man, older models. While I liked some of them, I've bought so many of them that it's just not. That just aren't playable anymore. They're either legends or it counts as. Look at all my great swords I've got. Look at my swordsmen that I had for Old Empire, and all my cannons, and all my outriders. I don't really have a good an analogous model for them anymore.
The Slaves to Darkness book, I'm hoping maybe is the rules bump for Dark Oath that they need.
Yeah,
because they made this sexy expansion of models, and they just aren't that good.
Don't want it just to be an army. Like an army of renown, or a battalion, detachment,
formation.
Right. Jeez,
they do have a formation.
I know. I don't want that to be the only way to play them.
No.
I want them to have good rules that allow me to take them on their own, and bring them in addition to my slaves, Chaos Warriors, and my
agreed
that kind of thing.
Because you've got an army with potentially really good variety. Even if they cut chariots and they cut the monsters and like, it's if you're going to cut those and not make new ones, well then you need to get rid of the battalion that's a Demon Prince plus monsters, and then your formation, and then make it so a mixed army is possible. Where maybe I want to bring my great big hurricane of Chosen, but I want to save points elsewhere. Bring a whole bunch of Dark Oath that are good. Yeah. Don't just go out and die. But I don't know.
But beyond that, we also know that there are some rumors. Part of it is roadmap.
It's funny
of what's coming out next year. We know that there are going to be some destruction updates. I think the consensus right now through rumor engines and the rumor mill is that Gloomspite Gits is going to get updated to the Git mob side, which they haven't had historically in AOS. It's been
Trogs,
MoonClan, Spiderfang, Squigs. I suspect we're going to get more of the wolf type units, maybe a few different wolfy, goblin kind of use. Your sneaky skulkers, bring back something, because they've been liking pulling in things from the past in general too, is inspiring them to build new stuff. Maybe even some artillery, maybe some cavalry, some new cavalry hero, a new shaman.
And I know
something.
If they do that, and if they, let's say, rip a Band-Aid and cut the spiders back to Old World, yes, there will be the outcry for a few weeks of the 3 people who collected those and say they're taking my thing away from me. But like we say, you got to like move on to the new. And if they really expand them in AOS with the wolves, for example, that was a good start to something.
Yep.
I think that'd be, and an updated goblin kit's probably long overdue.
MoonClan especially.
Yeah.
Well, because they've released the accompanying like elite MoonClan stuff slowly over time.
Yeah.
You got the Squig Riders that are ridden by MoonClan.
Yep.
You had a couple of Underworld's warbands that were MoonClan-y.
Loon Boss on Squig. You had
and they look great.
Yep.
They're great updates to the existing MoonClan. I don't like the old MoonClan unit.
No.
All the weird like screaming, toothy.
It's the Brian Nelson design that's still there. Yeah.
See, every design that's from old times that I don't like is all Brian Nelson.
It's Brian Nelson, and then Trish and Allie Morrison were the other ones. They did the Chimera and stuff that those monsters that are still around that are very static statue posed.
I don't mind those as much though. All the destruction stuff of like the eggshell
teeth
and
where the head's way too big,
and the gorilla butts.
Yep.
Orcs, all that. It's got to go.
Yeah.
The goblins are the same kind of thing. They have these massive hands.
Yep.
They're like stunty, and their heads are
enormous. Yeah.
The size of their body. It's just
Yeah,
he
did a lot in fantasy and 40K in that same era.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can still see the Arachnarok spider sticking around. That kit's fine. I don't know what synergy it would have with the army. But does it need it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it needs it. Maybe it's all encompassing like beast gets kind of stuff, right? Like,
I think you can just change its keyword and you make it fold it into
exactly. You can. There's things you can do with it. I wouldn't want that kit to go away because it still holds up.
Very good kit.
I put one together not too long ago, and it still holds up.
Yeah.
It's a good kit. The goblins on top, not so much, but the spider itself, yes. But beyond Gits, I think they were saying a new spearhead for him too, which might be Wolf. It might be that, And that's something people need to think about in this edition. Armies might get multiple spearheads that are different. Yeah. So, but beyond that, there's rumors of a character in a book for
Soulblight
orcs, either Iron Jaws. Not sure which. Either Iron Jaws
or the Warclans.
Boys.
Okay.
Because I think they're splitting them up again.
They are, yeah.
So one of the two armies I think is going to be up next for an update with a new character, and then beyond that, summer next year, 2025, sounds like the campaign, the story that we're going to be.
So around the time we lose Beasts and Bone Splitters.
Yep.
Okay.
We will be getting an update for a story where the current thing happening with Skaven gets stymied the other way around, where Nagash is getting his up on the Skaven, whereas throughout history, Skaven have always got one up on him.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's going to be a Nagash, Soulblight, whatever sort of team up. He's the protagonist. Kind of helps out to stop the Skaven kind of thing, which I think would be super interesting. There were loose alliances before in history, and
these are always opportunities for them also to introduce new named characters into the Age of Sigmar world. So I always like it when they do that, because the one lady who is a Soulblight Gravelord, she was in Usharon's court,
Soulblight Gravelord,
but she's in Soulblight Gravelords. Yeah, like that type of character. I love that sort of thing.
The lady with the snake.
Yeah.
Yep. Which I always forget about her. Yeah.
Yep. But they can always introduce new characters that way.
But it sounds like they're going to use this as an opportunity to. I'm sure there'll be new heralds, which is kind of what they do for these summer campaigns, where it's like 4 armies will get a new character.
Yeah.
Your rabble rousers and your war queens and like all those come about from that type of an event. But it sounds like they'll also use the opportunity for Soulblight to get an update to their death rattle range. So we had new skeletons before, right? Mm-hmm. When Cursed City came out, we had those new, like, I don't know, Persian-looking sort of skeleton warriors.
Yep.
Where they had like,
well, they look great.
But then there was one that came out separate to that was very similar but more generic than that.
Yep.
At the same time, we got new zombies. Yep. But Graveguard are old.
Super old.
Black Knights are old.
Super old.
The vampire on Zombie Dragon is old.
It is.
All of those are potentially being updated as part of this. It's a whole death rattle range kind of refresh for the rest of them, which I'd love to see. Mostly because you have again, weapon options on Graveguard that don't make sense anymore because some of them are great weapons, some of them are weapon and shield. They're all the same thing now. Those models are ancient. They are not fun to put together because they're. I'm going to throw it out there and say I like static models better because they look better and they're easier to assemble. The ones that have like ball joints suck. I put together enough skeletons and Necrons to know that like
even the fourth ed Tyranids were that way.
Ball joint. Yeah, even Necron. Yeah, even the Tyranids with like their warriors with their angular wherever you want to aim your weapons and stuff. I'll take not push fit, but I'll take the monopose models all day.
The other thing that the newer design style gives you is like it's a cleaner fit for one, and things like musculature and whatever actually lines up. Whereas when you had a ball joint, it's like, well, none of these things have armpits. Right. Where did that go? Yeah. None of these things have pectoral muscles. Where did those go?
Which makes sense on a skeleton, or it makes sense on a robot skeleton, but it doesn't make sense on other things.
And it sucks to assemble.
It really sucks.
Yeah.
You have to have like pins and clamps to hold them in place.
You have to glue two things at the same time and hold them at the gun.
It's awful.
So I like when they do refreshes of just like these older kits because it's a way for them to not really have to release anything new, but it's like, but here you go. You can have sexy new stuff.
But it also gives an opportunity to break up the kit of Hex Wraiths and Black Knights, which are a dual kit.
Yep.
Because they do not like to have kits spread across multiple armies anymore.
They don't.
So I expect that's a reason they want to do it. And then the Vampire on Zombie Dragon, also a Terrorgeist / Ghoul King riding either of them. Again, splitting two armies. They don't like it.
Right.
But it's a zombie dragon. Maybe it will be a skeletal dragon next time. Right?
Totally new thing.
Maybe not zombie, maybe it's skeleton. And then maybe there'll be a white king riding it instead of a vampire.
Yep.
That'd be super
And you can relegate the other kit to just one or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, or either. Vampire or a skeleton rider riding it to lead your all skeleton army. You don't need vampires anymore. That'd be super. I think that'd be super cool. But potentially that update, maybe another named character somewhere in there. But it's all a long ways off. That's almost a year away.
Goes by fast though.
I know. We'll see what happens.
It's like when you start a good meal.
Yeah.
And like before you know it, you're done with it.
You know what I hate about that? Nothing. No.
Nothing.
When you finish one element before the rest. You
don't like that.
Like you have like a really nice like a meatloaf and mashed potatoes and vegetables, and like you go and you eat all the mashed potatoes first, and then you're out of mashed potatoes, and you're like, well, now I have to.
I really wanted more mashed potatoes.
Yeah, now I gotta eat this. I should have rationed it. I should have eaten these peas and meatloaf with the mashed potatoes. Now I'm out. Now it doesn't add up,
and it feels silly to go get another scoop because my other things haven't been touched.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like that.
A little bit like that. Can everyone figure that one out?
Yeah. Hey, let's go eat.
Let's get mashed potatoes.
Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed. Follow us for more of our weekly episodes on YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. You can follow myself and Llama on Instagram. We are at Llama Paints Minis and Hyena Paints Minis. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. And as always, we'll catch you next time.